Mummy, why did we just happen? People happen.
Well, you get born, don't you? You start off as a little egg, and that's what turns into a person, a human being, a Homo sapien. Or a Homo sapien.
A baby doo-doo.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Jim.
This is me. I'm 38 and trying to work out how you navigate parenthood with a man you've been on a total of 4 dates with.
Just to say that I am free on Saturday now. I was going to see, but he just dumped me.
When I found myself single, pregnant and broke, I knew I had to quit my job as a TV director. But Jim was always ready for his close-up.
So you there?
Hello? This is your mother. Are you there?
If it makes you feel better, I'll say I'm not sad. Because you got to roll with it, man.
I'm just a bit worried about you. You said 7:30 and you're not back home now, and I'm just here. So I'm a bit worried about you.
I don't care when I die, I just want to get him to adulthood. He's just a kid still.
Hello, Jim, it's Grandma. I really need to talk to you, love. Can you give me a ring back?
Give it a rest.
Jim, I just look, go.
Shut up. I'm done with you. You're taking the fucking piss.
And your mama. So hold me now. And your mama.
Oh, he's little.
In your automatic.
Mom, say something. Right, I love you.
Your electronic arms in your arms.
Honestly, I literally was. You're never bored of that trailer. It's just so many emotions that run through me. Sorry. Wow. I've seen it like 3 times already. Let me formally introduce you. We've got Victoria Maplebeck, who's a BAFTA award-winning artist and director, and joined also by Debbie Manners, who is the executive producer. Thank you so much for coming today and for sharing this journey with us, specifically yourself, Victoria. This is 2 decades worth of archive. How do you go around putting 2 decades worth of archive into one documentary? What's the process been like?
It was a big job. We, in a way, when OKRE were amazing because that funding, which we got quite late on, really, didn't we? It meant we could do an 18-month edit period, which it really needed. And as you see from the trailer, you know, it's our whole lives. It is over 20 years. And one of the things that was really useful was that Debbie and I had made a few shorts, which was some of the storylines. So we made a film called Miss Call, which was about my son's decision to meet his dad when he was a teenager. So in a way, we'd sort of test-drived a few of the storylines, which was useful. And kind of the film had found its form, but all of the funders kept on saying, well, what's the grammar of the feature going to be? And of course, you're bullshitting if you pretend that you know, because you don't know until you're in the edit. So that 18 months was about us finding the grammar of the film and getting it out of a linear structure. As you see there, that there's a device that we use where it was actually a VR piece I made where it was a durational take, wasn't it? And I use this device where I collect all of my phone audio, and I use this device where the camera's on my head, and it's almost like you're watching me think, and I'm remembering all of the voicemails that have come in or voice messages that I've had. So yeah, it was a big job.
And Debbie, just how did you join this project, and what's your journey been with it too?
Yeah, so we've about 5 years ago, I think we started thinking, look, we've got all this archive, and we've got these 2 short films, and we've got these really at the time 3 very clear sort of storylines. Maybe there's a 90-minute film in it, I suppose, but going from those short films to now, that 5 years was really important actually, and therefore coming in and taking it all and sort of throwing it all up in the air and saying, how do we make this a big long film that you want to sit with, rather than just having, it certainly was a long way away from just putting those short films together. So it's been a long journey.
It has. You're telling me.
And in terms of picking what stories or what parts to actually include, obviously this is your lived experience. Can you talk about how that was for you to know, okay, this might actually be entertaining, but I don't feel comfortable with it, or maybe I do feel comfortable with it, but I don't know if I want it to be entertaining.
There were lots of those storylines. And I think that the biggest challenge we had was that the shorts had effectively finished when Jim was about 14. And for any parents here, you'll know that the teen years are they're a whole different ballgame. And that's interesting about parenting, because I think you sort of find out who you are very much at that time. And, Jim had to deal with my cancer diagnosis when he was only 13, and it had a really bad sort of delayed effect because I'm the only parent, so obviously he's more vulnerable. And I'd started to use a device where I recorded phone conversations in lockdown, and so I had this recording of phone conversation where Jim has stormed out the flat, and I don't know where he is, and I'm ringing my mum, and I'm beside myself, and not my finest hour, but it's a really interesting call. And I think Debbie and I had, and with Oka's help actually, to work out, because Jim's 20 now, but he was still young when these storylines were being kind of filmed. And so we did do, Debbie will talk more about it, but we did a sort of 3-month development period, didn't we? Mm.
Yeah, which was sort of unusual to do a development period when you're already 15 years into a project, but it was great to do it, and actually it was working with Oka that sort of made us sort of take on that discipline of really sitting down and thinking, particularly because at that stage Jim was still not 18, I think. We obviously the shorts had been out there, so we had a lot of duty of care previously, and we had protocols and everything, but it really made us think, actually, as Victoria said, there's going to be some difficult things in this film that he might not want to be out there in 5 years' time. And he needs to think about that, and we need to think about that, and we need to divorce, the relationship a little bit from, Victoria as a mother, Victoria as a director, and Jim as a subject. Now he is now 20, so you could say, oh, it's all very easy. He can just sign off on it, but actually it's much more complex than that when you're in the relationship. So we spent a long time working with experts and developing a list of protocols, and we're still in the middle of all those actually. Lots of chats with Jim, but he actually, one of the brilliant things about Jim is that he didn't want it just to be a kind of a pretty picture of everything. He wanted the difficult stuff in as well, because he wanted it to be real, as did we. But it was a real turning point, wasn't it, of saying, because when you're a mother, you want all the good bits. You want people to see what a wonderful relationship you have with your children, and showing the difficult things is really hard. And so we had a lot of debates about what would go in, and not everything went in, but we think enough went in to give you a flavour of that, so that it feels genuine and real. And Jim's always had right of veto from the shorts onwards. So there's always a thing where I've got an assembly or rough cut, and I sit down with him, and anything he really doesn't want us to use, we don't. And actually Mandy Rose was one of our consultants, wasn't she, in the duty of care, and she was sort of talking about when she was at the BBC Community Programmes Unit in the 90s, she offered that to her subjects, and at that time the lawyers were like, what the hell? Are you mad? This was before lived experience was sort of central to our way of thinking. And I've always done the same in documentaries, so especially was going to do it with my son. Yeah. But yeah, there's bigger complex issues, isn't there? Like supposing he changes his mind into the future,
You know, could it jeopardize? He's not got a great relationship with his absent dad, but could it make it worse? So it was really good to put the brakes on and have that time.
And just looking at buy-in, because I mean this is a 20-year project, in terms of funding and in terms of that process, how do you, I mean you did create shorts, so that was the kind of test case, but how was buy-in hard to get funding for such a lengthy project?
It was really hard. It was really hard. I mean, even after the day after Debbie and I won a BAFTA for Miss Call, and we thought, surely it'll get more easy now. And we got a meeting with a big fancy pants producer, and he came on and he went, your films are just too small for me, and I want big stories of celebrities and true crime and space. And I said to him, and he went, epic stories. And I said, well, you know, raising a kid on my own and how he dealt with meeting his dad for the first time as a teenager, closely followed by his mum's cancer diagnosis, that's put us on a pretty epic journey. And he just said, well, thanks for sharing that. And then it was off. And then we had another 5 years maxing out credit cards. So, yeah, no, I think, I mean, Michaela Coles talked about that as well when she was first pitching I May Destroy You, that her writing was described as small. And I think that's got to change, you know, and is changing, but not quick enough.
Well, there were two turning points, really. One was, because actually having the shorts was a positive and a negative, because people would sort of say, oh, well, how's it going to be different from the shorts? You've already done the shorts. So that was a bit of a negative. And it was also a positive because they could see that, you know, they loved Victoria's style. And they could obviously see Jim, etc. But the two turning points were we had a sales agent who gave us a small advance, and so and they were a feature film for sales agent, and so that sort of suddenly gave us the confidence that we had something that could be a feature film. And the second turning point was OKRE's funding, which really gave us the money to finish it. Otherwise, it'd still be sitting there on the hard drive, wouldn't it?
And I think that the liberating thing, because I'm really passionate about shooting with smartphones, and I teach film, and that's generally what my students are shooting on. But it was completely liberating because they're much better for intimacy, but it also meant that you can keep working with no budget.
Yeah.
So for all those years we had no budget, I could still be shooting. And then where the money went is in that really big edit period, working with myself and Ollie Bauer, who was the editor that I co-edited with.
Victoria, how did you, every moment that you decided to record, how... Was there any a time where you were like, oh, is there any point of recording this, or is there any? How did you keep recording? How did you not stop recording?
I think I've always found it is the sort of lemonade out of lemons for me. So I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer, and we'd already been making some of the short films, and I'd asked if I could audio record my diagnosis, and I had this lovely oncologist, but also crackers. And he started telling me about how the cancer cells had moved across the border, and it was like they were illegal immigrants, and so they had to be zapped with the chemo. And I'm like, God, this is like gold, but weird. And when I came out into the waiting room, I thought it hadn't recorded, and I was more devastated by the fact it hadn't recorded than the diagnosis I'd just had, which I think for any filmmaker is probably the way you need to be. And then it had recorded, it had just gone up to the cloud and then zapped back down. Something about the worst days during my cancer treatment, and also again shooting with a smartphone, I was able to film without having to contact the comms department and go in with big crews. But if I got a good sequence out of it, it helped.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's true of all filmmakers. I suspect it is a little bit. But I remember you saying to me because we were in the edit for Miss Call when you got the diagnosis, and that was really when I think we sort of thought, let's keep going, didn't we? Because you said, I think I can make a film about it. So that was the third film. And you've also said, you say in this film, I was somehow looking at something down a lens helps me to deal with it. And I think you, even at that stage, said, I think I can deal with it better if I can make a film out of it. It's my way of processing it. Yeah. I suspect that's probably something that a lot of filmmakers feel, but certainly for you, I think. And when we launched the film at a festival recently, somebody asked the question about whether you were going to carry on filming, and I think you already are, aren't you? Carrying on filming, we can't stop her. So I think Jim was the one that sometimes was like, oh,
he's probably had enough.
Please, not another shoot, another shoot. So.
Yeah.
Debbie, Victoria, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You
Thank
can catch them
everybody for
outside
watching.
as well if you want to
Thank
talk to them. Thank you.